Everyone can shoot something with an iPhone. Has nothing to do with affordability, because how much are we talking here? A couple $100 cheaper than a...
No, you're not talking about a couple of $100, man. You're talking about a whole lot of savings.
If like Apple did their commercial with they should have done it with no professional production crew and no lighting. The whole idea behind the premise of what they're doing is to show off to people who don't have those resources. Yeah. So to test it in areas where the resources are available, it's almost like void. You can't do that. I forgot. What was that thing you wanted me to say? All right, welcome to Podcast and Crew. My name's Armin Oli Martinez. We have a special guest today here. Everyone's a special guest, so I know you may hear me say that a lot, but
that means no one's a special guest if everyone's special.
Yeah. Trying to mess with my show, man?
No. It's Hagler also.
Hagler. Not Hag? Fluffy Hag?
So I know, yeah, that was the weird...
Fluffy Hag, man.
But it doesn't, it just doesn't, it doesn't feel the same.
It's all good, man. So how's it going, man? How you doing?
Doing good.
Apart from the 3 hours you've been waiting.
But that's not a big deal. I'm not worried about that.
So we just came back from Oklahoma from like a 2-day trip.
Yeah.
Like a medical shoot. And so
2 day equals 1 day of just constant, 48 hour 1 day kind of day.
Yeah, it was more so like we filmed the airport rather than the doctors.
For real though. Yeah.
I kind of saw that. I saw that.
Bro, it was like we're at the airport more than
constantly.
It was 4
layovers
flights just to go to Oklahoma. It was crazy. Yeah, but there was everything was sold out.
Yeah,
all the direct flights were sold out.
Yeah,
so.
And even what they said is that they used to have a bunch of directs and now there's like one. So
maybe because Oklahoma just isn't.
Yeah, it's not popping. I'm gonna say it was very quiet. It was nice. People were extremely friendly, but it was not popping off. That's for sure.
Yeah, it was dead, bro. When we got there, and then 6 a.m, we're looking for breakfast. Everything's closed.
Really?
Yeah, everything was closed. It was crazy.
Yeah.
It was just,
okay, but. Well, now we're gonna shoot some questions, man. We have to shoot. We have. That's what we got you here.
Why are we gonna?
Should I introduce who I am and what I do?
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, let's do that first, and then we'll get into the main thing.
What is it that you do, man? We want to know.
Well, Dan Hagler, and I'm a director of photography here in Central Florida. Previously I was a longtime gaffer, and then last few years, moved over to a lot of director photography, mostly narrative work and some commercial as well, because there's a lot of commercial here. So.
Yeah, there is. Yeah. I'm kind of interested to know, as far as I don't know how many shorts and features you've done, but is there really budgets in Florida for that stuff? Because I never seen.
They're common. I think part of it is the growth in Florida, population wide, and the speed of that is going to eventually help, but it's also slowed down the incentives. And without the incentives, big budgets that want to have 35-40%. Of their budget incentivized, they have a hard time. So there's a challenge of that. That's well, if I'm not getting money back, if it's not made easy for me, then I might as well go to Atlanta. I might as well go to, I'm about to shoot in Kentucky because they have a better incentive program. And that's really the only reason they found a location.
And that thing never passed where Florida had a tax break or something or incentive to
I think they have a couple little things, but it's not really as competitive as a lot of other places right now.
Okay.
So Georgia, Kentucky is one of them. LA, obviously, New York. They've all been promoting incentives continually for the most part. There's been dips in and out, but Florida for the last 20 years has just not wanted to play ball.
Yeah, I thought it eventually would get past that, but. I don't know. You know what he's talking about. Remember the thing that we were saying that
we're talking about money.
Yeah,
we're talking about money. If you want to, be clear with people, there's no money out here.
Yeah,
they're not giving us money for us to film.
Well, it's commercial. There's money in commercial, and so part of that is you got your big brands, your Disney's, Universal. You can go work with popcorn and all of them, and you're going to make union rates. You're going to do great, but commercial is sometimes just makes me want to pull my hair out. Because it's boring, it's straightforward. There's a lot of drones. A lot of people are just, and it's tough. But that's where the money is. It's
corporate stuff.
It's corporate stuff. Yeah. Clean videos. We have massive studios. We have some of the biggest studios in the country here, but they're never being used for narrative. They're 100% being used for corporate.
So where all these people that put money into the shorts and the features? Where do you think they're they're looking to make profit back from? Like, are they just making it?
Oh, it's AVOD. Yeah, so AVOD, so ads on like ad video on demand is the platform for indie right now. So your Tuvis, your Freevies, right. Amazon Prime can help a little bit, but it's a struggle with them. So now that they have Freevee, I've heard pretty good things. So a lot of times you're trying to put yourself onto one of those type of platforms that'll continually pay for it.
Now, how do you make money when they're showing these movies out for free?
It's ads because AVOD, right? So there's video on demand that would be paid per view, right? Somebody would, I'm going to pay $1.99. I'm going to pay 99 cents, whatever it is, right? Mm-hmm. And then for AVOD, when you go on to Tubi and you play whatever,
gotcha.
It's going to have an ad break every, 15 minutes or 30 minutes, depending on which one it is. You get paid as the person who placed it there, right? You get paid as the creator, as the producer, whatever it is, however percentage that you own gets paid out from those advertisements. And that's probably the easiest way to continually make money on a project. I know, like on my first feature film, I had 3%. I had 3 points on the back end. I'm about to receive another check from that, because it's still being watched, and we're about to come out with the sequel for it. So theoretically, that boosts it. So for indie, it's all in AVOD.
Now, I got a question, right? That sounds so good and everything, but do they require for you to shoot with certain gear?
No,
not at all.
No, it's
so
not
you
like
mean
Netflix.
to tell me I could come out there and say I got this film and I shot it with an iPhone?
It no longer matters what you shoot it on. It matters who's in your movie. The truth is that, like, we paid for a couple faces, and then we're going to splash them on every poster and everything, and we're going to tag as much of it, and they're going to push the platform. That's how movies have always sold. We just pretended it was a little different. We made it a little more official, but the truth is you're not selling movies, you're selling faces.
So now the question is, how easy is for you to get those people on your film?
Not hard, honestly. Like, I think what happens is we get scared of asking and talking to agents. The truth is, the worst thing that can happen is they say no, right? So go on anybody of these people's IMDb. There's a phone number, who represents that person.
Gotcha.
Call them, say, hey, what's their day? You have a script. You were going to have them for 5 days, but they're a little pricey. Let's cut them out of a couple scenes. We'll have them there for 3 days, and just so that I can put their face on my poster. And that's how we pick movies. We recognize somebody. So if Robert Downey Jr. played Charlie Chaplin, I'm buying it because, so
you're saying if it's like just like no faces, no A-list actors, and you can still put it on there.
You can still put it on there. It's not going to do as well.
Right, exactly.
Because it's traffic. Right. It's like not putting a sign outside of your restaurant.
And then those platforms, like if you go to Fire TV, any of those. Like if you watch a movie from a specific actor, then you'll have suggestions below what that actor's in.
Yep.
So does that play into also?
Absolutely.
Okay, so if they're in your film and it's a low budget whatever film, and then they're in that film, it'll suggest for people who've watched anything with that actor to watch. Okay.
I mean, because everything's based on an algorithm.
It's like a tag.
Yeah, and the amount of actors that play similar roles in similar type movies. Now, if you watched a movie that was within a genre, they see that you like true crime, type stuff, then they're gonna push more of that. They have an algorithm saying what they think you like. Right. So yeah, when you watched a movie with a certain A-lister or even B-lister, it changes the algorithm and pushes that content towards you.
I hear you. I mean, we did use some famous faces in our film. But
which one? The old one?
Nah, not the second one. The second one we did, we used. We're not gonna. I don't even want to say his name.
You talking about what we just recently did?
No, the one before. The
Fury.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean.
Yeah, but he's blacklisted. So. I don't know.
He's blacklisted
by us or by the industry.
No, by the industry.
Yeah. Yes.
And I'm not going to say any names.
We're not going to put the names out. But the kid was actually good, man. From way back, right?
Yeah. I guess the main thing, we'll talk more about other stuff, but the main thing I want to bring up is, I had Bill call me up, our founder and producer here. He was basically sending me this stuff, about iPhones being compared to cinema cameras and even prosumer cinema cameras or whatever.
Yeah.
And he says, interesting. And then I watched the video and it just shows a guy or a couple guys rigging this phone up to this big cage and doing all the software, the hard, the follow focus. They attached the cage, they attached the monitor, they did all these kind of like adapters to get an SSD to work with it, whatever. Did all this crazy stuff. Right. So my thing is like, why do all this stuff, right? In the name of, hey, everyone can do films now. Everyone can shoot something with an iPhone, right? But essentially, what is the end result? Because it really is the same thing. Like you're still rigging it. You're still getting all these things to make it work. And in fact, has nothing to do with affordability, because how much are we talking here? A couple $100 cheaper than a Blackmagic, for example, right?
No, you're not talking about a couple of $100, man. You're talking about a whole lot of savings, man. Because if you focus on an iPhone and just lenses and a rig, you're saving a whole lot of money.
Well, I mean,
how much are you really saving?
I think a part of it's missing the point that what are you trying to accomplish, right? Because when we think about cinema, all right, and you might not, if you're not as attuned to what's being used, everything is a specialty, right? Everything is very, very specific to a mood or emotion or whatever. Like half of the movies you're watching right now are not shot on a lens that was made this century. Like in the 21st century, it was everything. We're going back to vintage. We're going back to emotional looks and feels. So for cinema, it's not even a fair comparison, because you could compare it to the most digital lens that's out there right now that's being used, and it's not going to still look like something that A24 is doing, because they're shooting on Super Baltars, they're shooting on K35s, they're shooting on old glass and old emotional elements. That's the part that's missing in an idea like that the iPhone can shoot cinema. Like the iPhone can shoot 10-bit, it has 12 stops of dynamic range. All that's really cool, but does it actually add emotion to stuff? Yeah.
Well, what I was trying to tell you about is, yes, I get all that, what you're saying, you got to buy all these lenses, but the point of the video shows that they're already spending money to make this thing work, because they're putting in rigs, additional adapters, and follow focus rings. You're already passing the amount that would cost you to already be ready, like a GH5, for example. Out of the box, it's ready to go. All you need is a lens, and you can handhold this thing, right? But for example, an iPhone to work on set, right, you still need those rigs, the map box, everything that they put. I mean, did you watch the videos I sent you?
I watched some of the videos, but I'm a true believer that the story, it's what it is what you're filming. Like one of my favorite movies of all times is Once Upon a Time in America. And I mean, look at it.
Right, it's story.
Forget about what we got now. Let me give you that same gear that they were using back then. Yeah, and then give me the same result. You get what I'm saying here?
100% agree with the story part.
Let's go to Scarface.
Well, Scarface,
one of the greatest movies of all time.
But it wasn't shot simply.
Well, I know it wasn't shot simply, but they didn't have the same technology back then.
Well, let's talk something that's a good story, but it's modern.
Okay, let's go. Let's go.
Good story, modern, but not shot well. Like Karina was telling me about this movie. It's an indie film.
You're just gonna call them out like that? You're gonna be like, "Hey, you were shot like crap." No,
no, it's not. It's not saying it's crap. But like to industry standards, I'm okay with it. Right? Yeah. Like I tell people, watch this movie. It's called A Coherence. It's a really good film, and it just looks like somebody was using a handheld camera. Lighting is just like room lighting. There's no
bare bones,
and it's incredible. It's this parallel universe kind of thing where
I think you can always find things that justify the rules, right? And say that there is, you shoot a film and it's really cool and the lighting is great and the hair light and everything, but then performance was bad or the editing was bad or the composition didn't match. You can always find a way to ruin that project. But if you do, I mean, it's true that we need to focus on the talent and the story first. But the job of the cinematographer is to complement that, right? And what I think we're missing is that with an iPhone, you're basically deciding not to lose what you're shooting, right? I don't think you're complementing. I don't think you're adding to the storytelling drive. I think you're just keeping it flat.
I think it's just shock value. I just think they're like, okay, let's just show you what this phone that's in your hand can do compared to these cinema cameras, and we're gonna, put you all down. I think it's the wrong way to go about it.
And I'm going to say it's an amazing product. I'm going to say that, but from making videos and having enough content, wow! Like
for BTS, it's amazing. For example,
the fact that you can put in sensors on it, the fact that you can, it's a you can get Hasselblad glass that looks phenomenal, high contrast, low contrast, so much more control for content creation. But to compare it to cinema, to compare it to, it's just, that's the stretch. That's the stretch, you know?
And I will say this, like, to add to your point, is that I've never seen a film where the story sucks and the quality is good, but I ended up liking it. I normally wouldn't like it if the story wasn't good, even if the quality is good. But you can't say the same for the other way around.
Yeah.
If the quality is bad and it's not shot well, but that story is good, you're still watching it. You're still going to.
And the truth is, you're going to ruin. And this is the unpopular, but popular. You ruin the story more with bad audio than you do with bad video.
Yeah.
Absolutely. You can get away with bad video if it's consistent to a look, right? We have tons of movies made as found footage that proves that. But if the sound were crappy, you're done. You're out. So that's the real focus for some of that. If you're shooting on an iPhone, great, fine. Just know that like there's a detachment from what we do and what that is.
Gotcha. No, but the way I see it is for everybody that's coming up. You know what I'm saying, and got a bunch of excuses that we talked about the last show that we had. I mean, you can start. You get, it gives you a start, man. You can start somewhere. If you just have an iPhone, you don't have no excuses.
Yeah,
that's true.
Bare bones. Bare bones. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
I think it's mainly for not a big production. It's just for somebody trying to start out. Because when I watch these videos, they're always putting it in the light as if we're going to use this on a big budget. Not a big budget, but like a controlled environment, a controlled set.
It has
lighting.
been used on a big budget. It has been used.
I know, but when you got all those resources, the whole idea behind the premise of what they're doing is to show off to people who don't have those resources. Yeah. So to test it in areas where the resources are available, it's almost like void. You can't do that. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
We won't be able to shoot anything on an iPhone right now. We just won't accept it. We probably run a test, which we are probably going to run.
But if like Apple did their commercial with they should have done it with no professional production crew and no lighting. That's really how
I get that.
You understand what I'm saying? That's how it should be presented to see this is how you can do it without. And now, it's like the microphone aspect, right? You can take a $200 microphone and plug it up to an amazing preamp and it'll sound great. But the other way around, you cannot do that. If you get a real expensive mic and it's going through a bad preamp, it won't sound as good. Yeah. So what's powering it is very important.
Light. And that's always been the truth. The truth is the power of cinema is lighting. That's absolutely the visual nature is all light. All you're doing is capturing light. A camera is a sensor, and a sensor captures the light that you give it. That's all it is. And
when you're set, how it looks, and
Well, that's the thing. It's like however you lit this, because the set's not visible if there's no lights, right? The talent's not visible without lights. So really, all you're doing is capturing what is bouncing around and is able to go into the camera. So if you don't have control of that, you're going to sit there and be like, oh, but it was supposed to look amazing. But it's not. It's still you're still in your living room with just the lamp on. It's, you have to find a way to gain other types of control to do it. And I think part of that goes to like if you had time and money, you could shoot on an iPhone, but then that defeats the purpose.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, man. Well, I don't know. It's a fascinating thing to talk about because it's if people want to go that route, I'm okay with it. Yeah. I just don't like the way. I'm not saying I don't like the way, but the way it's being approached, it's almost like when the Pocket 6Ks came out, right? Or the Pockets came out, period. They weren't advertised as you need to get all these things. But essentially, we were sold into it because we realized we had to do it, right?
Right.
So, like, I think they're selling the product in a way where you got to put all these rigs on to make it work, so it just defeats the original purpose,
Yeah. Well, but to your point, I do think it's a starting place. Right, because remember when I was a kid, like 10 or 11, and they bought me a little flip recorder. It was like the white one. They still sell it, and it just had a USB that went out, and it could record like 1 hour of HD, and you could go out and you could just film whatever. You could just create content and get used to framing and doing all that kind of stuff. And so for that, maybe mom and dad aren't going to buy you an official video camera because it only serves one function, but they bought you a phone so they could stay in touch with you, and the phone does have the potential to put some interesting content out there.
Now, last week we got together and you was talking about how everybody wants to shoot stuff with a gimbal. Nowadays we got
that was actually my next point I was about to bring up. No, you brought it up at a perfect time.
Everybody wants to shoot stuff with a gimbal, and I noticed you always have a small jib everywhere. Everywhere you're shooting, you got a small jib.
Never on a tripod if I can help it. because there's always the potential for movement and adjustment, and there's a lot of micro movements that you can continue to have. I know a lot of cinematographers have started putting things on movies so that they, even when it's a static, it's not static. That
right.
Like modern cinema is just not static anymore, right? So that's a lot of why gimbals became popular.
Yeah, yeah. And I think it got too much into one solution for all. And I think it got into the minds of people thinking this is going to fix everything, the crane, the slider. And, I don't think people realize that the movement is more shown in a wide angle versus a telephoto, because you really don't see your environment move when you're in that sliding shot as much as you do in a telephoto.
I mean, one thing that I can say, we did the gimbal stuff 12 years ago. We had the vest.
Well, that's not a gimbal because
no, it's not a gimbal. But back then they didn't have the gimbals with the whole 3-axis motors.
Yeah,
they had
a steady
we
cam.
had the vest. The steady cam was almost the same thing.
Yeah,
we tested that stuff out.
Now,
that stuff was
steady cams is what they still use in Hollywood. The gimbals is very prosumer kind of like
right.
Well, right now I saw that they're using the whole vest.
Yeah.
With the gimbal on the whole rig.
Yeah.
And I've done
that. I've done that plenty of times with like a crane, like you put a crane 3 on an arm.
It's almost like a combination of gear.
And a lot of that's not making the crane better. It's just taking the weight and distributing it better.
Gotcha.
That's all that does. Your arms don't have to do all the work.
Yeah. So what you're talking about is, I think the gimbal stands out differently than the Steadicam does, because if you're talking about the one with the vest and it goes up like this, like a pole, and it's got a battery pack at the bottom, that's a Steadicam.
Yeah.
No. We used the Steadicam with the vest. But if
talking about like
the whole vest that we tested out on in Crane's Roots years ago, if we would have put a gimbal on top, it would have helped with the weight, just for holding it for a long period of time, because the gimbal would have did the whole work that without balancing or anything like that. It would have helped for a long time.
Yeah,
it's definitely helpful, and it's a useful tool, especially like if it's motivated. Or, I know that I've been on sets where it's just a way to save time a little bit. Is just I don't have a way to be dynamic, but let me do this. And that's just a cop out a little bit, because movement's supposed to be motivated. There's supposed to be a reason for it.
All right, so I got a question, because I was arguing with a guy the other day, and if you guys can tell me what's the difference between a videographer and a cinematographer.
Oh, we get into it.
Yeah, we got to get into that, because
I thought this is only an hour podcast, right?
No.
Do we have 5 hours? Oh my gosh!
No, seriously, we got to get into that, because he was like, nah, but this and that. So, listen, what you do is you do clips from here, clips here. You put them together. It looks good, but there's not a story there. It's not continuous.
So what do you, videographer versus what? Cinematographer?
Exactly.
It's very simple. It's actually, we can break it down and give you the answer right away.
Break it down.
It's a videographer doesn't necessarily handle like an aspect of imagery and art. It's almost like, get the production ready, shoot this. It's very like a corporate way, I would say. But a cinematographer it's cinema, right? It's not video. So you're actually combining art in essence of filmmaking and creating storylines. The lighting is not always the same. Yes, it's your 3-point lighting and all that, but sometimes, it's exactly. Yeah. But the mood is completely different. And you're actually presenting a story through that. Like when you're a cinematographer, you have to explain in a story kind of way, depending on the script. And videographer is going to be like, okay, how do we shoot this? Let's get it done. The lighting's this way, right?
It is, to your point, taking the artist out of the equation when you switch over from video. It is not to say that they're not artistic or have quick eyes or whatever, but most videographers cut to music, right? The video is made to cut the music, whereas like for a cinematographer, you're making an incredible story, and then composition is made to complement what you did, right? So you're making the art that then art is going to stack on top of. Whereas with a lot of videographer work, you're going to find a track that you think is fun, and you're going to cut to beats in that track. For what you're not creating emotion. Usually, you're dealing with a product or an area or whatever. It's simply not storytelling.
Yeah, it's more so product and so what was his argument? What did he say what closed the difference between in his argument? I'm curious to know.
To be honest with you, it's like we like the years of walking around with a camera and shooting little stuff like for stores and stuff like that. I was talking about. I told him, I said, man, I can't do that no more, because there's nothing there. That stuff that I didn't want to insult the guy, but I said that stuff that you do is temporary. It doesn't it doesn't stick as if you're doing something with a story and you're doing cinematography, that stuff is forever in my eyes. You get what I'm saying?
And I think the adds also to what you were saying is the videographer doesn't necessarily, that could be wrong, like the scene himself. He is not really a master of lighting. He's more so the shooter.
Yeah, that's. Well, I also told him that because he comes out and he just pull out his camera and he works with the lights that's around.
Yeah,
he's
and they might have a
pushing
couple
the ISO
pieces.
all the way up. He's, you know what I'm saying?
I mean,
So
they
it's
might have a couple lights.
No. The guy that I was arguing with,
but
comes
in
out,
general,
pushes
like
the
in a
camera
wedding,
to
for example, wedding is not a cinematographer.
No,
depending on
but they'll have
what
some
the
light.
premise.
But they probably have a couple lights for some of the stuff as well. You know, they might have some softbox they bring in the room for this shot.
Right.
And really, it's just a question of whether or not you're just getting content that you're going to edit together in some way, or if you're I think the difference is storytelling, right? And I do think there are cinematographers that do weddings, and while they're doing the weddings, they're a videographer. But then they find a way to make, because you've seen wedding videos
the premise is what's the premise of the video that they're doing. If they're doing in cinema, they want their wedding to be told in cinema fashion versus 60 frames per second. You know, kind of like music going. It's a difference in that form. You know, and most people that do a wedding, they don't ask for it in a cinema way.
But the cheap part about the wedding is that it's a story of its own. Is a wedding.
Yeah, but the cinematographer has to convey that story in lighting and the way he shoots it. He doesn't handle the story himself technically. He's handling it how to present it on the screen the best.
You know how long it would take you to do a wedding if you was to take the steps that a cinematography takes to make things look well? It's just impossible, bro. Well, I mean, this shot 54 action.
No, but it's
only one shot.
Yeah, but it's who uses what's the end product, right? Essentially a wedding in that fashion would be a trailer. It would be an end result would be a trailer.
Yeah, which they do. They do those.
He doesn't have to worry about connecting scenes together because none of that's going to connect. It's all going to be B-roll stuff over something else.
Yeah.
So even though the cinematographer is doing that,
yeah, I think a big difference to that point is a cinematographer shoots something that's planned out and in sequence, right? And there might be some finagling in post to make it all fit together. But a videographer does not know the edit while they're shooting it.
Right.
They are simply getting as much pieces as they can that they think could fit together, and then later we'll figure it out. You know, and there's a huge difference between having a storyboard, having shot list, having, you know, everything planned out to exact nature and simply being available to capture it.
So taking it back to the iPhone situation, will you take the challenge to shoot something with an iPhone, or you just won't bother?
I mean, like the challenges are fun.
You're an Android guy, man.
I know. I am an Android
guy, but I'm not. To be honest with you, every time, how much time on set am I saying, I wish I had this iPhone that Doug has so I can capture the B-roll? Yeah. Because when he captures, not the B-roll, BTS. When he's capturing BTS, I always ask him, send me the footage so I can.
It's good. No, it's
my phone
good.
sucks.
Yeah, no, it's good.
That's a potato right there. I mean, look at that.
That's a potato.
You know
but at the same time, that's always the challenge: is can I make the same quality work on a potato?
Yeah.
And if you're good at lighting, then the challenge is a lot of fun, right? Because all you're trying to do is get it to sit at the right levels within dynamic range. That is the entire goal of lighting: is to sit within the right levels.
100%. You're right about
lighting when we were shooting that film. And we will
the last one.
Yeah, well, the second to last. That's when
okay.
We
The Fury
bringing out lights and flags and all type of stuff.
The Fury, right?
Yeah.
No, I mean, to add to his point, he's absolutely right. I mean, some people will light it to where they light it, but then your main source is to balance out all the exposure levels across the board, skin tones, highlights, and sky to that level, right? So, for example, let's talk about the short film we just did. I'm not going to say it yet because we can't talk about what it is, but that sky was white. Right. Yeah. And we didn't have time to balance that out because essentially what we would have to do is we expose the sky and then we bring in our lights to expose your subject because they're going to be dark. And that's dynamic range that we're trying to introduce back into the image.
Because most cameras are not going to be able to, you know, have the full thing. I mean, we have Raptor coming out right now with the Raptor X that can do 20 stops. So it's just insane. 20 stops. Damn. Oh,
that's going to make lighting a little bit easier.
It's going to make life a lot easier. Now, when you're looking at an iPhone, you're getting 12 at like 1100 or 1200 ISO, and that's the best you're going to get, right? Anywhere else, and if you're in a dark environment, you're looking at 10 stops, maybe. You're looking at half of what the highest end cinema can do. So you're going to have to light more for that camera than for, you know, when we're running around with even, you know, the Blackmagics or something else that can do 14, 15. You are going to have to compensate in lighting, period, because it's just not going to have the range.
So my question is about, I don't know much. I didn't look into this too much, and you know about this because you have an iPhone. When you do that zoom in, right? Like when you zoom in or you use it, is it digital or is it optical?
Digital.
Yeah,
It's
digital. Digital has
so
to
it's
be.
not an actual separate lens that gives you that extra.
How could there be?
100%.
Because that's why they had. Well, it's got all those like lenses on the back.
Well, let me tell
I
you.
think
What,
it switches lenses.
Right, so it
Something.
switches, right,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
But if I literally, so I'd have to stop recording.
no, you don't have to stop recording. You
No,
just,
but what I'm saying is if I don't stop, I'm only zooming into the lens that's being used at the moment. Does it actually switch to the other lens seamlessly?
no,
It
no. They
can't,
give
yeah.
you they give you 3 lens option right on the screen. But today I took when I was talking about that, I took the liberty to download that the Blackmagic
app, control app,
and I was playing with it, and it was amazing. I mean, I'm not saying let's go and let's shoot a movie on it, but it just gave me so much control over the whole device that it was like, oh man, I'm gonna pay for this, man. I want this, you know, because it works. But you know, it is what it is. I mean, I understand where you guys coming from, but if you're new to the game and you don't have $10,000 or even $2,000 to buy yourself
But there's cameras that are cheaper than that.
Well, but the other thing is like if you're new to the game, right? You're not going to know the stuff you're talking about right now. You're going to have a phone and be like, what's the adjustment for ISO? What's the adjustment for... So if you're brand spanking new, go get yourself a DSLR so that you're forced to not use it like a cell phone.
Yeah,
you're forced to treat it as
if you get into the ecosystem of the phones and you start off that way, he's right. You're not really... What if somebody really actually hires you?
I'm not going to lie to you.
It's a good thing for it to be hard sometimes.
Yeah, no. We went the hard way.
Yeah.
Well, we didn't have the phones, but we did spend the money on when I started, I spent money on a 5D, which was like $3,200.
And I'm not even here
I
arguing.
still have my T3i, and I bet you I could do better footage on it than most people can.
Bro, listen, my 5D.
Yeah, 100%.
Me and him, how we
love
he'd be
5Ds.
shitting on me all the time. He's like, "Yo, 5D." Yeah,
Well, no, because
5D,
I like to
man.
color my footage, so the 5D doesn't give me any.
No, it doesn't give you any. No chance.
Well,
for
So I
raw.
think you can do it if you leave it alone.
Yeah.
But like, and I'm not here trying to bash iPhones or what camera to use because it's the premise, right? If everyone thinks, you know, I need something that's affordable, but then, you know, and like getting caught up in the gear, like we talked about this all the time. The gear doesn't really matter, right? So if I think he's right. You've got to focus on the lighting aspect if you want your image to look good.
Yeah.
Because then you can actually cut down and get a cheaper camera, go that route, and spend more money on the lights.
Yeah.
Because if you don't and you spend more money on the camera, because everyone thinks, you know, I can't explain to you how many times I'm on set and everyone's, what camera is that?
What camera's
What
that?
do you-
Those cameras
How
are-
much is that? I'll buy it right now.
Yeah.
You know, and
I'll
I'm like,
tell you what, we shot a video years ago. I'm talking about like 9 years ago. And I tell people it's 4K.
Yeah.
You can't tell the difference. The one that we did at Juice with the white background that we shot it and edited. Then
talking
next
about 10
day
years,
we
the 10
delivered
years
it.
ago? Okay, yeah.
Yeah, so you remember the lighting.
Yeah.
Lighting was crazy.
Yeah.
So it's like,
But you can't even see any of that with all the effects. So I don't think and then of course, he's not going to be educated on the resolution. You're going to just, like you're saying, you're going to tell him it's 4K.
Yeah.
Right. And then the clientele is always going to say, are you shooting red? Are you shooting
is it
XYZ?
raw? Is it is it my favorite one is when I was in graphic design and everybody would ask for a vector, you know, and it would be the randomest thing. It'd be a photo of somebody and they'd be like, oh, we want to be able to scale this up, can you make it vector? And you just have to be like, do I spend the time and explain to you that that's not how it works, or do I just deliver a high res thing and move on?
Well, essentially, you can't create an image into a vector and scale it up without.
No,
that only works for digital images created within the software.
Exactly,
you know that, right? Like if I create his logo that's behind him right now, you can take that a vector and scale it with no pixel deformation.
It'll continue to create because it'll create even lines.
But an image, the image, the people that he's saying, they think you can do that to an image.
To a
can't
picture.
do that to an
No.
image.
So it's the same
impossible
thing
to
as
do.
like, you know, when the Ursa came out with the 12K, when Blackmagic came out with the 12K, and everybody's like, oh my God, it's my punch camera and all that kind of stuff. It's like, okay, cool. At the same time, that sensor didn't get any bigger. Right. Which means that your pixel depth is the same size as it was on the 6K. So when you punch in, you might as well have punched in on the 6K. You're getting the same amount of data.
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
So the focus really should have been on let's get cleaner pictures. You know, when I get editors all the time being like, oh, I'll rescale for this. It's like, can we talk about, you know, maybe doing some mask work first before we try to rescale images? Because, you know, we framed it to, like, if you're spending the time, you're supposed to frame it to perfection. But there's a lot of focus on let's just get huge resolution so we can make one camera into 3 cameras. It's like, it's tough.
Yeah. I wanted to talk about the other thing, man. We talked about when we were in Oklahoma on the ride, and that's about, you know, squeezing in, like, you know, production value, for example, like when it comes to A-list actors and producers, because, you know, I'm sure a lot of people that watch the podcast are going to be people that aren't knowledgeable in filmmaking, but they'll be knowledgeable as far as producing and getting people together, and they're probably beginners, right? So blocking, you know, like we talked about that. So I want to kind of like tell people how hard it is to kind of like, you know, go from shooting a scene and not blocking enough time to go to the next day and tiring. And how do you balance that time between being efficient and still performing at your 100% best,
right?
But also letting producers know that, you know, this needs to be done in this fashion in order to perform the best. Otherwise, you know, people get tired and all that. So,
well, I mean, the key term in filmmaking for me is pragmatism. Right, is to be pragmatic. Pragmatism. It basically just means to, you know, be smart with, you know, be logical about what you're doing. Get the best that you can, but understand that there are limitations, right? And so, you know, we do a storyboard and shot list, and we're dreaming to the moon, but then they cut 2 days off of our production, right? So then we have to start thinking, okay, maybe I don't need 7 shots, I need 3, right? So we go through our blocking. What 3 shots? You know, this person lands here, walks over here, you know, this person's over here. This is the camera movement they wanted, but how do we simplify this? And that'll happen all the time where you try to find a way to simplify the situation. But, you know, if you were to dream big, you know, you wouldn't have to do that. But we always have to be pragmatic. And part of that is balancing and allowing yourself to say, okay, this is what I dreamed up in my head, and this is what we're actually able to accomplish within the time parameter to say you've given me. So that's the balance. That's the
and then like the other day when you told me, you know, you had a producer that had an A-list actor, right? So what they did was I'll bring up to speed. Basically, he was working on this film, and they brought in an A-list actor, and they paid him X amount of money, but then he was only going to be there for X amount of days, right? So that's what the only budget that they had for it, right? So it was obscene amount of money for the amount of time that he was going to be there. But so they squeezed. He said almost half the script had this guy in it. So now you got to shoot all these scenes in this amount of time where he's already half the script, and he's in the project. You know, he's on set for like 3 or 4 days, but then you have like, let's say 50 days to shoot. And then how are you in the script half the movie, and then you're only on set 3 days, and then it's like a 50-day shoot.
You'd be surprised how often this happens. And part of it is just it's cost efficiency. You want to get the max sell value for the least amount of money, right? So it just makes sense. But what ends up happening is you end up, you know, I know of film sets where they did that person's coverage alone, right? Where, you know, they're in 35 pages and we have them for 1 day. So we're just going to do their close-up and then have a shoulder double for the rest of it. For every time we do an OTS.
That's crazy, dude.
Right? Because you have to be pragmatic. I can't shoulder you can look.
I haven't heard that one, but that's nuts.
Shoulder doubles that literally they're just there. They have a similar build style. They get their hair done. A lot of times when you see an A-list actor wearing a certain type of hat or helmet or whatever, they did that so that they can replace them with a stunt double or a double of some kind
so
at any point in time.
In case they have to.
I was watching Hannah the other day, the show. And I noticed that they were wearing this helmet during this fight scene, and then they pull the helmet up, and it's the person you think that it is, right? It's like they weren't there.
They weren't there.
They weren't there. But they were there for one shot, and whatever dialogue happened right afterwards, and then that was it. They were back in their trailer or back on a plane. That was it.
Exactly. And now you can shoot it with the helmet. Person wearing the helmet. Yeah.
A lot of time, and there's a lot of wigs that get put on. A lot of your wides, like if somebody's running across, if you know Tom Cruise is running from this area, he's going to do the stunt that shows his face. Any of the stunt that's not supposed to show his face, that's not him, dude.
Yeah,
we don't have the time for that.
You know, here's the thing, like we're trying to make a point here is that we can't perform 100% as cinematographers or directors or whatever because you're squeezing all these things. So let's say lighting takes X amount of time or X amount of hours to do or whatever minutes.
Yeah.
You have to cut all that down. So essentially you're cutting the production value all for the sake of speed.
Yeah, and even worse, you're cutting production value for the A-list person that you brought in.
The most important
So that's
thing.
the thing. Like when I'm talking to producers, that's the line I'm cutting. It's like, are we going to end up with worse quality for our biggest guy, just so we can save a couple? Well, how do we simplify this to set ourselves up to still get good quality for them? Because we can't make that big guy look terrible.
That's definitely happened to me as well. Like, having to, in the movie that we did, we had the guy come in, he charges $1,000 a day.
Yeah, I remember.
And the guy's like, well, he's just going to come in, guys, for 5 days. That's all I can afford him. And then, we have, like we said, it's not enough time to make his scenes look the best. Now we got to go handheld. Now we can't go on the slider. We got to do this and that. So
yeah, you got to hurry up. Make it happen. Right?
Yeah. So it's just like, you got to producers, they have to know how to balance the scales here. Like, what is your priority? Is it to get them in there, or is it to make it look good? And
when you start seeing your average page per day, right? And I remember I was on this feature film, and we were going to be at a high average. It was going to be like 7 pages, 8 pages a day was a tick that we had to hit, right? And we get in the first 3 days, and it was like 3 pages, and then it was like 2 pages. And then it was like 3 pages. And I was sitting here like, we have not gotten through enough of this script. Next week is going to be bad. And it was like, then the first day of the week back, we had a 12-page day. Then we had a 10-page day. Then we had a 13. And it was just like, because that's when all the talent was available and of course that also means that there's multiple talents in the scene. So we were shooting.
You can't debate this.
No, you can't. We're shooting 3 pages days with 1 talent. That's like cake work getting done in 7 hours. Right? Instead of 12. And then on the day that we have the talent, we need to do 13.
Wow.
And we have 5 talent in the same room, and I have to get all their coverage. It's not fair, but then that's when the ability to become pragmatic and do minimum coverage.
Okay, that brings me to my next question. Do you think there should be, and I'm not trying to control what people want to do, they can do whatever they want. Do you feel like there should be some sort of the producers that are just getting into it, or like maybe somebody who just wants to direct a film, never really directed a film, and maybe a producer is his first film, right? So should there be some prerequisites to understanding certain things before you get into it? Because things like this happen, right? And it's usually from people who don't know how to, do blocking, don't know how to set up a crew on time and kind of put it all together. Let's say, and the crazy thing is I've been on things like this, and it's usually people have a lot of money to put into these films, and then they're the least informed. They don't have that much information. So what it is they bring a big crew, they put all this money down, and essentially the blocking is really bad, or the organization is really bad, right? So should there be some prerequisites in a way that, and you can't force people to do, of course.
No.
But should it be recommended?
Yeah, I mean, there always has been a prerequisite. You were supposed to start as a PA. Right. That's always been a thing. It's been known. It's been understood that you're supposed to start as a production assistant and work your way up. I think we're in a generation where filmmaking got cheaper because of iPhones type concepts, where suddenly even prosumers, the fact that I can have a cinema camera for a couple grand was never possible. Right. You had to load. You were going to spend more than $2,000 a day on film stock. That was what it used to cost. Now it's cheaper. You can afford to learn from the top, right? Is what I would say. And that's a really impossible thing to do. It's hard to learn from the top. It's hard to be at the top and learn from people under you. Generally, you're supposed to be under somebody, an apprentice in some way, to learn what they know and then grow your way up. But if you're starting from the top, and most of the people that are starting from the top have these massive egos because they are the money. They are the, I'm the director, I'm the this, I'm the that. I want to be in it too. How many directors want to be in their movie cameo because they saw Tarantino do it? Tarantino had to earn his way through Hollywood. Okay, you're not Tarantino just because your dad has a construction company. It's hard to learn your way from the top, but it's become so affordable to be at the top early.
Yeah, and I was going to say that maybe it's not even just the fact that some people get into the camera work or the cinematography and all that. Sometimes you'll get people that, like you're saying, the egotistical aspect of it is they'll kick off a director or assistant director and then just run it themselves as producers. So now you're producing it. Now you're trying to be the director and you're being some sort of coordinator, right? So in that essence, it's an egotistical thing because it's saying, I'm going to cut cost. I'm going to do it because they don't have my vision. It's actually, you have to entrust somebody below you to be able to handle your production the way they're supposed to be. And part of that is again, we go back to the balancing thing. Are you willing to sacrifice like how much you're going to pay? Or are you going to pay a little extra to find somebody who's knowledgeable as being your second producer or whatever? Or
and can you be patient about it?
Right.
Can you be willing to have a couple projects you aren't anticipating on selling just to make sure you have a crew that knows and make sure everybody is gelled and then repeat with a similar crew? That's kind of how it goes. And you see a lot of first-time filmmakers where they make a movie, they spend all their money on people they have never met before. They just, they talked a good game, and so I hired them. No, nobody does that. Everything in the industry is referral, right? So if you don't have a base connection of filmmakers that are in your circles, you don't know who to trust when they say, oh yeah, I can do that for you. You had to do pickups for a feature, know, because the guy before was goofing basically. Like it was not solid footage. It was very, very mediocre, very videographer type content. But then you have to come in and do good content, and it's just going to get mixed in with theirs.
Right. What are you going to do? Less better content?
Yeah. Are you going to try to match the crappy stuff?
Yeah, and then your name's on it. So at that point, it's not really.
Yeah.
But yeah, like what he's saying, there was a film that we were working on, and somebody had already started it kind of halfway, and it didn't look as good. So we came in, we did our own thing, we did lighting and everything, and now they're piecing this together without reshooting all this. You don't match at all, but they have to roll with it.
You have to roll it. You spent the money. It's in the can,
Yeah.
I hear you.
Yeah.
So sometimes it's just, I think, I can't tell people to have a prerequisite. You can do whatever you want, but in essence, I think it should be, you should really get yourself knowledgeable with filmmaking, because you're going to spend a lot of money. You're going to lose a lot of money if you don't know what you're doing.
Yeah. Or you got stupid lucky and then you'll never learn anything.
What type of advice you got for the upcoming filmmakers?
Work under people.
Yeah.
Somebody knows something you don't. Somebody knows something I don't. Do not be the smartest person in the room. Find somebody that knows something that you don't, and just sit there and witness. And being available for that is the only way to do it.
Yeah, no, 100%. And then I like, even when me and you work together, it's like, your stuff. We're kind of like, we're doing the same thing, but you throw ideas, I throw ideas, and okay, yeah, that's better or whatever. Sometimes I don't even think of stuff that I know I wouldn't think of.
And then Doug shows us a little clip from a different angle, and it felt similar to what we were doing, and so it was quick audible.
Exactly.
Move that. It looked great.
Go over there.
Hold on. This is what happened, right? So we were in Oklahoma. We're filming this doctor.
This was this week that passed.
Just a couple days ago, and so we get this. We're just talking with each other. I mean, we're these cinematographers. He's done feature films. I've done feature films, right? So there's always something to be learned, right? Or, you learn something whenever you do something, right? And you don't even realize it. So we're there. We set up one camera. It was like a medium shot. He's sitting in a chair, nicely lit. And then we did like the side profile, which people like to say it's a Netflix shot.
Yeah.
It's the very narrative style, kind of like right here, but it's a side
real
profile.
tight, real contrasty.
Yeah, real contrasty. The windows back there. And it looked great, but then we're like, I don't know. To me, I felt like something was missing. I didn't want to say it.
Yeah.
Because I was like, I'm like, Dan's not saying nothing. I'm not going to say anything.
Because it's not a bad shot,
Right.
Yeah.
But then Doug, he doesn't really do cinematography. He's the interviewer. He's like, check out this.
He's doing this.
No, he brought out his phone.
Yeah.
And he says, hey guys, you guys know, like, have you ever seen this? This is a cool interview with this guy. And I looked and I saw it was similar to what we were doing, but his second camera was just a little off to the right. So it was basically where we were, but a little off to the right. So all we did was like, how about we go there? And then we went there. The shot was perfect.
It was beautiful. And then we were on the slider, so I was able to get closer to our original shot and then back to that comfort. It was like, and honestly, I've done that setup before, but it was part of the reminder of the different options and just seeing it right in front of you as a similar look, being like, no, that's really clean.
And I think we're fatigued as well.
We were a little fatigued. We were tired.
Bro, you guys were tired, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so it was just, yes.
We'd just been shooting surgery too at 8:00 in the morning.
I saw the footage.
Yeah.
It was awesome, bro.
And we went to bed. So we got there at the airport around 10, finally get to the hotel at 12 o'clock. And Doug's like, we got to wake up at 5.
5 a.m.?
Yeah, so we got 5 hours of sleep. We just went through 2 flights.
If you fell asleep immediately, which I can't do.
It's hard after you come from work to 40.
Yeah.
Well, there was no work. It was flying. We haven't worked yet. So we got to go to bed. We're going to bed at 12. And then around 4:30, I actually woke up. I couldn't go back to sleep. So Doug's like, I hear him through my headphones saying, hey, guys, how about we go get breakfast, before we go to the surgery? But check this out. At 7:30. Surgery's at 7:30. So We're like, yeah, that sounds great. I think we should
Yeah.
put some food in our stomach. Because originally, I set my alarm to like 6:15ish. I figured that was enough time because the place was 4 minutes down the road.
Yeah.
All right, fine, 5 o'clock. So we start driving around Oklahoma. Everything's closed, right? It's a rural town.
Yeah. No,
So we're like, all right, let's just load the gear in, put everything in there, and we're going to get breakfast. No, the whole process of going in, talking to somebody, figuring out what we're going to do, all that time that we woke up early was necessary.
Yeah.
So luckily we woke up early because everything before that was pre-production.
Yep.
Figuring out who's going to let us wear, what scrubs we have to put on.
Yep.
And so now 5 hours of sleep, we get done with the surgery, and then we're waiting like 3 more extra hours because the surgeon was still in there doing his thing.
Yeah.
And then 2 more hours after we pack up, the flight is at 6, right? And at 6 o'clock, so mind you, I think we're up total for like 21 hours. We're up for 21 hours.
No, we were up straight for a very, very long time. It was basically like, fly in, spend all of that time, barely get a wink of sleep, because you're just in these separated moments, and then getting in there, and we had to be on standby. There was a lot of waiting, but it's not like you can rest while you're waiting. You have to have this set up, you have to have that set up. I'm not going to take a nap because, doctor could come in at any moment and be ready to go. So we can't actually fully settle down. And so we were feeling this fatigue, dealing with all of that. Doug almost fell asleep. It's one of those, and then suddenly they get there and we have to film them.
So wait, it was just 3 of you guys.
Yeah.
So you guys were doing lighting. You guys was doing this, that. So you guys wear all hats this weekend. That basically you guys
pretty much.
And that's videography.
Wait. Back to what we were talking about. You can't go in there saying, "Oh well, this is all I'm gonna do."
Right, and that's what I like about our team.
All them hats.
Yeah, I am gonna counter that because all the people making buku bucks. If you want to make buku bucks in the industry, specialize. If you want to make stupid money, just right out as early as possible. Do the boring job that nobody wants to do, and do it to such a proficient level that you can just keep going over and over and over.
I want to say I agree, but this portion I would say I disagree. I would say one thing is that I agree with you. But I wouldn't say that I'm trying to specialize in anything other than what I'm doing. Yeah. It's almost like it's a necessity in the aspect of what we're doing already. But to add to what you're saying, definitely specialize in what you're doing. But if just work a little extra hard if you believe in the mission of like working with someone else and you're trying to build up a company. If it's just a job and you're hired by someone, and it's just, you're just helping another producer or film, and eventually you're going to not see them ever again. I guess in that aspect, there's no journey there to be counter. So in essence, I think we should also know how to do other things in case we need to do it. Because in this instance, right? How would we would have produced what we produced there if we had to get all these extra people there where they didn't pay the budget? Now, there's this flip side to that. Yeah. Because it's all about convincing your client to spend more money to give you better quality or to give them better quality. So if you want to, like you were saying, you want to bring a PA on board to do the sound or whatever.
Well, right? I'm talking to somebody right now that they want to do a quick little shoot, a little commercial for something. And, they immediately were like, oh, we want the DP. He needs to come with the lighting package. He needs to do the lighting and blah, 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 blah. And they're talking all this stuff, right? And they put out a pretty decent number. And I countered and I was like, I'm going to say lower my number, afford somebody to be there with me. Because the more of those bodies, the better the quality. Okay. So if I come in by myself, it's going to hurt quality, right?
So you're
every
willing,
single time.
So
you're sacrificing it.
So you're willing to come down and And I
pride my work.
I 100% agree with you. I would definitely do that myself. Yeah. And I wish I got paid enough to cut down on my price and be able to.
My first feature film, right, that I shot. Okay, I was offered a specific rate, but I wasn't off. Like when they told me how much they had available for the crew. It wasn't enough. Like I was like, I can maybe hire one guy into lighting team. Are you kidding me? Like, and I'm going to be asking them for a favor if I'm going to hire them, right? And I know that I'm already lowering my rates to be on this. But I said, you know what? I'm going to cut my rate in half of what you guys offered me, which is already below my rate. I'm going to cut myself in half, and I'm going to bring in another person into lighting. To be able to handle that department. And, they appreciated that. And that's the only reason it really came out a certain way, because otherwise we're not getting this done to any quality.
You can't put 100% capacity to the entire thing and get you to do it all.
Yeah.
Like you're saying, if you're not specializing in that and having to do everything, not only are they going to run out of time, you're making more money, but you're one person.
Right.
Right. So paying you more to do extra things is not going to speed up anything.
No.
Yeah.
And theoretically, you're not going to do that forever. Like, you shouldn't have to cut yourself forever. The idea is that you end up being at a level that they're going to pay you just to do this, because that's where the big movies are. The big movies are somebody whose job the entire day is to hand out waters, and they're paid better than half of your videographers out there.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. All right, man. So, we'll take a break and we'll come back. Welcome to Podcast and Crew. We are back. And special announcement. If you have diabetes and you get sugar cravings, go with monk fruit. It will change your life. Right, Dan?
Yes, sir.
Good stuff, man.
Thanks to
We just got to make it more popular so that they can grow it more.
Yeah.
And so then it won't be as expensive anymore.
All right. So we want to give a word to our sponsor, Orlando Production. We do AV live streaming. We do film production, video production. And so if you guys are looking for a big team, a dedicated team, we have a big, ambitious crew here. And just, reach out to us. We'll be happy to help on your next project. Right, Dan? He's part of it too.
Yep. I've done some projects with Orlando Productions. Good people.
Yes, sir.
Good people.
All right. So we want to get into the final thing we kind of want to discuss is burnout. How do you handle burnout? And when you're just going on for hours and hours, even though you're passionate about what you're doing. I know there's some times where we're just working and even past 10 hours, sometimes 18 hours into it, we still have that drive and energy because we love what we do. We're always on the move. But is there a point where it's just, I'm sure there is.
Oh, there's all.
How do you get through it? What do you think?
I think it's human and for us to think that we can handle everything. If that guy can handle, a 24-hour day, I can handle it. If they can do 14 hours over 7 days of the week, I can do it too. But the truth is that, even when you love what you do, you need the rest. Your brain doesn't function that way. So when you're dealing with burnout, just understand that this is human. Understand that this is normal, right? That, your body's yelling at you, telling you, hey, please just give me a second, And in our industry, that's almost impossible to deal with because there's always pressure pushing you. We got to get out here. We got to film that. We got to do that. But, mental health is a big deal. There's every set I'm working on, there's somebody that crashed out or know somebody on the last production that crashed out. You can't live that way. And I think you should deal with balancing that by understanding the moments where you're exhausted and you're tired and you just don't want to push anymore, and know that a lot of the people standing next to you feel the exact same way.
Okay. I was gonna, that brings me to my next point. I was going to ask, we talked about this a little bit, and I know we were kind of going back and forth about equality when it comes to actors and actual crew members, right? Mm-hmm. So this portion where we're discussing is burnout. Normally you don't see actors kind of burnt out because they don't have, or they get the amenities. Normally that crew, they don't get those amenities, right?
It's never going to be the same, man. I mean, last time I was in a shoot with you, I was chilling in a trailer, man. I was just hanging out, man.
But my point is, okay, let's reverse back. Why is it turned into this type of mentality? Why is it a burnout type of business, right? Why can't it be orchestrated? Why are we so driven to keep hustling and beat the next guy? And that's why it's going to get done fast.
If psychologically, I think we think we're the heroes of our story and our hero can handle anything and we go Hercules mode, but that's not it, right? So at some point we have to let the body reset. If you work out 7 days a week, you're not going to get stronger than you would if you only did 3. Because your body's not resting. Your enzymes aren't getting out there. Everything has to build and grow and rest, and you have to get the water and you have to get the whatever. Coffee's not going to make you better for 3 months. It's only going to make you better for the next 30 minutes. So finding a ways to not have short-term solutions and having long-term health. That's how you need to deal with burnout, is the fact that, if you finish a project and they pushed you like crazy and somebody offered you one right after it, but you're tired, take a break. I had to do it this summer. I was working this super long project. We had 100 days of production, right? And at the end of it, I was tired, man. I was done. I was supposed to work a feature immediately afterwards. And luckily it got postponed. And the moment it got postponed, Crystal, my girlfriend, bought tickets on a cruise. She said, I'm not going to let you schedule anything. We're going. We're taking a break, and she had to shut me down because she knew I was burning out. She knew I was, but I was going to keep pushing. We're used to doing that.
from you being on set, do you? Now I want to go back to that second question. From you being on set, do you see actors going through this burnout?
I see actors going through a different type of fatigue most of the time. A lot of the times when they're going through fatigue, there is a pressure to the environment and the situations, but I do think we also, and situations baby them in a way. But I definitely have seen talent go through, especially when there's a day of emotion. I think that's when they deal with a lot of it bottled into a very quick amount of time. They'll deal with the fatigue of, I have to cry for the 7th time in a row.
Right.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
That's tough. You had to turn it off, turn it back on, turn it off, turn it back on, and I'll have to relight. So an hour later, I'm going to do the same thing again. I have to remember my movements.
Days later.
Yeah, it's just there is a mental side of that, but I do think on the physical side, we give them a lot of an easier time. Usually less hours, better turnaround. But so I think it's just different. But they're also doing prep work while we're not doing prep work because they have to memorize stuff. So. Well,
we are doing prep work. We're charging batteries. We're building the rigs. We got to get there early. We're the last guys to leave.
Then what I would say is the bad talent, right? The bad actors that are just come in to clock in, they're not dealing with the fatigue that we're dealing with. But then there's the ones that actually dedicate, and they're probably just as tired as we are.
What do you think about that? Do you think?
I think it's not even. It's not supposed to be even. Talent.
Why is it not supposed to be even? Because that's the problem that I have.
I mean, talent doesn't do any physical work in a way. I think.
They don't. Yeah, I'm not. I don't think they.
We've been there for hours, and you got people that are just doing that. They're not setting up for lighting. They're not doing this. They're not doing that. They're not. Remember when? Remember when the slider broke, and we had to go out and buy some screws to tie it back up because it won't tie it up. They don't have to go through that. It's just.
Well, we're not. I don't think we're asking.
But under the same premise, we shouldn't pay our script supervisors. They only sit there all day.
No, you're right. You do what you do.
I'm not like comparing it in that kind of way. I'm comparing it in a way where the catering aspect comes in, right?
Yeah.
The pampering.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think we're taken care of as crew members.
But you know what? I think we don't take care of ourselves as crew members. Here's the truth is, and this is you're right, what is being offered, but we don't negotiate our contracts the way they negotiate contracts.
Yeah.
We take jobs because we feel like we have to take jobs. We try to fill up our schedule as early as possible. And sometimes we should have spent there and said, no, I needed to lose this job to get the better one, to get the better pay. And the better environment. We sell ourselves short, right? And the big DPs, the big gaffers or whatever, they're making bank for the abuse that they're physically taking, right? And we sometimes tend to put ourselves in the same amount of abuse for a lower price and a lower benefit because we don't have representation for the negotiation. And that's a lot of what the strike stuff was going on because, residuals were getting cut back and hours and all of it. Yeah.
And that wasn't just actors doing this, the complaining and the strike back on the
right. A lot of writers. It started with writers and then it was SAG. Yeah. Okay, afterwards. Right. Yeah.
Yeah. I get all that aspect too. It's just, I think there's a certain amount of pressure that's put on the crew members to, of course put physical labor in, but at the same time, what you're saying is, sometimes we put just as much as work as people are making a couple million as DPs.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And then we're just doing it because of the excitement that we're going to be part of this project.
Right.
But, I get it. I get it. Yes, I know what you're saying. The talent does make the film. Mm-hmm. The story makes the film, but we make the film as well.
I have a what sells the film? That's the better question. What sells the film?
Yeah. The story.
Because actually, the story doesn't sell the film.
It's the A-list actors.
The actor sells the film. They know they're the brand. Yeah. So if I'm gonna make a commercial for Coca-Cola, the bottle sitting on the table didn't do any work. I did all the work.
Right.
The bottle's a brand. It doesn't matter. It matters. That's the focus of everything that's going into it. So if you can't sell their face, you don't make money. If you don't make money, we don't have jobs. Yeah. So they know that, and that's why they negotiate better.
Yeah, that's a perfect answer. I guess in a way.
Trust me, James Cameron is making bank because he's his own brand, and he's not we never see him on camera.
So what you're saying is, next time we shoot something, I could just lay down. I don't have to do anything.
I guess you're the Oli Martinez brand. Good stuff.
We're
guys.
making
Good
our
stuff.
brand right now. This is
That's good stuff,
yeah.
man. Awesome. Well, thanks so much for coming by, man. Appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Good time. I'm sure you'll
Yeah.
be back on again because we're doing this all the time with Orlando production. But
It's fun stuff.
holy.
Thank you.